Yes, hello and good evening. And that's right, it is Sunday night again here at the Ohio Academy of Family Physicians, where it is family medicine, the best specialty ever. We are back with bite sized learning, and we have a great topic. We have a great panel coming up. We're going to be talking about this is all about residents and students tonight. We're going to be talking about the huge AAFP National Conference of Family Medicine residents and medical students meeting coming up on July 28th through 30, of course, in Kansas City. And for those of you Ohio people watching this, mark this on your calendar. There's going to be a special Ohio dinner for those people attending. National Conference is going to be on July 28th at 7:30. There's going to be all kinds of information that's going to be posted about this, and but just to mark that on your calendar for people who happen to be going. So we're going to be talking about, if you're a first timer, like if you've never been to an in-person national conference, is going to be an in-person this year. We're going to talk about that, and for those of you who have been before and want to get more involved, we're going to be talking about that too. So I'm very excited with our panel. So we'll be bring everybody on, and then we're going to get going here. So hello, panel. All right, so we're going to have everybody just briefly introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into the discussion. So Dr. McIntosh, why don't you go first?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth McIntosh. So I am a practicing family physician now in Johnstown, Ohio, outside of Columbus. I graduated from Grant Family Medicine residency in downtown Columbus in I can't even remember now. It's not that long ago, 2020, right in the middle of all the COVID craziness.
It
And
goes fast, doesn't it?
I know. But I was actually the resident chair of National Conference that year, where we had to go virtual because of COVID. And then prior to that, I was the student chair of National Conference in 2017 when it was live in Kansas City. So I'm very excited that it's going to be live again this year. It's one of the best conferences that I've ever been to. And yes, and we will talk lots more about all the reasons why.
Cool. Dr. LaForce, why don't you go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm AuBree LaForce. I went to NeoMed, Northeast Ohio Medical University, and now I am a almost second year in 3 weeks resident, for who's counting, resident at Cleveland Clinic Akron General in family medicine. And I've absolutely loved my journey so far. I am very passionate about advocacy in family medicine and leadership positions as well. That is why I've been so involved with the OAFP and the AAFP. I've been on the foundation board at the OAFP, and then I've also had multiple different leadership positions at the AAFP. Most recently, I was the student chair last year to the AAFP National Conference that was virtual. But like Lizzy said, I am so incredibly excited to be in person this year. This year, I have a new role. I am Primary Care Leadership Collaborative. I'm one of the coaches for PCLC. So that's kind of will be my role this national conference.
Cool, thank you. Olivia, why don't you go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Olivia Dhaliwal. I'm a rising third year at CASE. Very passionate about family medicine and super excited to be attending National Conference this year. As everyone has stated, I've heard so many great things about it. Already love family medicine and very excited to love it even more after this conference. And I'm honored to be the Ohio Medical Student Delegate to National Conference this year. So very excited about that.
Cool, thank you for being here. And Rommel, thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rommel Morales. I'm a rising third-year student at Northeast Ohio Medical University. So I just took step one a week ago, so it's finally nice to have a breath of fresh air. I had the discreet pleasure of being at National Conference last year when it was virtual, and in all honesty, it was an experience so nice I had to do it twice. A wonderful experience engaging with our caucus and our members and talking about our initiatives and priorities here in Ohio. So glad to be here.
Cool. Well, great. Well, I should just say I was resident national delegate back in the day, so that's the only thing I'm going to say. All right. What is National Conference? Now, for people who haven't been there, what is it? Aubrey, why don't you go first, and then Lizzy, you can follow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, National Conference is hosted by the American Academy of Family Physicians, and it is centered around students and residents. There is a huge fair that goes on where residency programs from all across the country come, each having a booth set up. So it's a great opportunity to walk around and connect on, different levels, whether it be future employers, all the way down to residency programs recruiting medical students. And so that part of it is kind of the exciting connection part of it. And then there's also a business side, which is super interesting. And if you have an interest in the business aspect of family medicine, the advocacy, the legislation, the caucuses, all of those kind of thing, it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet. So how I like to think of National Conference is kind of split into two, and then it kind of meets in the middle. And there's also like main stage speakers. There's definitely lots of seminars you can go to. There's hands-on experience, different workshops you can do. So I would say like the residency booths and fair that happens, as well as the business sections that meet. There's a student one and a resident one, and they talk about the goals and of family medicine in the upcoming year. They also write different like legislation basically and they all vote on it, and then once that happens, then it gets sent up to the next level to be talked about into coming into family medicine. So there's lots of policy and procedure on that side. There's lots of connecting on this side. And then there's also so many like just seminars and educational things as well.
Yes, definitely. I think part of the fun of National Conference, it is just a huge conference. It's definitely the largest sort of student conference that gets put on for medical students. No other specialty does quite what family medicine does as far as showcasing our specialty and how much we love it. And I like to think that it's because maybe no other specialty is quite as passionate about it as we are. But I can't remember the numbers now, but there are thousands. I think it's around 3,000 to 4,000 students and residents. And then when you add in the attendings and other outside speakers who come in, just a huge group, the energy is really amazing. And like AuBree said, there's actually several tracks. So it can be a little bit confusing when you're going as a first timer because there's just so much going on. But so the residency fair is a big thing. And you get to connect with residencies from all over the country. And then there's a leadership section, and then there's the workshops and main stage also. So it's sort of like almost there's 3 tracks actually. And so the workshops, they tend to have both clinical ones where there'll be different topics to, the target is usually to get topics that you might not see in medical school as much. And so you can browse through those kind of things on the website, but they often will talk about things that might not be covered in med school as much, whether that's finances or caring for different special populations. They also try to give you lots of hands-on workshops for different topics. I know for myself, I went to allopathic medical school, so I learned a lot of sort of introduction to DO techniques at National Conference that I never got exposure to otherwise. And then the leadership part is really fun. Like that's what AuBree was saying about the business sections. That's one thing that I think we missed in the virtual conferences, is just being able to meet with and talk with other like-minded individuals, talk about where our specialty should be going. The resolutions that get passed from the student and resident congresses actually go to the sort of, if you want to think of the adult AAFP board, and they do take into account like what we're thinking and and where we think the future should be going. So all of that's really fun. There's also a chance for leadership to run for positions at National Conference. Most attendees there, including the delegates, are all first-time attendees. And so if you get a chance and get the bug to sort of run for different positions, it's actually a really great place to do it because everyone's coming from the same place that you are. So it's not like this is something that people have to spend years and years preparing for. You just go, show why you're excited, and see where it goes.
Cool. Well, that's a great first step there. Um, uh, Rommel and Olivia. So obviously, this is going to be your first in person. Other than being in person, what kind of things are you looking for? What kind of experiences are you looking for? What kind of expectations do you have going to in person this year? Rommel go first, and then Olivia can follow.
Yeah, sure. So to elucidate for everyone here, I'll be assuming the alternate delegate role under the brave tutelage of Olivia here. And really, my interest has been in policy, and so that's kind of why I went for this role. I've been becoming increasingly entrenched in policy in the past few years since I matriculated here. So just to give some background, I'm heavily involved in the Ohio State Medical Association. I served as alternate delegate last year, and then delegate this year. I also represented medical students on the reference committee at that meeting. I'm also heavily involved with policymaking on the national level with the American Medical Association. So at the regional level, I kind of host resolution writing workshops. At the regional level, I was actually the vice chair last year, and I was appointed the chair for Region 5 about 2 days ago. And I was also awarded a new policy leader for this year. And then on the national level, I kind of sit on a few committees. So I sit on the House of Delegates Coordination Committee, as well as I led a RefCom on medical practice just yesterday, actually. So I drove back from the conference today. What I really love about OAFP is that I get to bring all these experiences and kind of distill it down to focus for our members here in Ohio. Because obviously I live here and I've made my home here and I'm going to make my home in practice here. So for me, it's about bringing it to my community and advancing patient care as well as physician wellness here. And so that's kind of what I want to bring to this upcoming meeting.
Cool.
I have almost none of the experience that Rommel is bringing to the table, so he should probably be the delegate and I should be the delegate underneath him. But I'm really excited to be at National Conference this year. I think the things that I'm most looking forward to are really getting my feet wet, hopefully like diving headfirst into understanding what advocacy looks like at National Conference and then also within the AAFP. I think it's so cool that the AAFP cares so much about what students and residents think. And I'm really excited to just better understand how delegates are able to understand what issues are important to peers and then how those issues get brought up to higher levels of leadership within the AAFP. My inspiration mostly comes from my other medical students at Case. Started an advocacy pathway this year, and my mentor, Dr. Vanessa Meyer, is leading that. And I'm already in a pathway, the humanities pathway, so I'm not in that one. But I've been really honored to be a part of a couple of events that they've put on, and it's made me really interested in advocacy, particularly because I think that family medicine is such a special specialty. It's so unique, and in order for it to remain that way and for family physicians to be able to continue to practice broad spectrum family medicine that we're trained to do, it has to be protected at a policy level. And so I really want to make sure that that continues to exist through my career and for the generations that come after. So I'm excited to learn more about how I can play a role in that. And I'm very, very excited to meet some residents from programs all over the country. I have no idea where I want to be, and I'm so excited about thinking about my future and like what that could hold. I feel like the opportunities are just endless. So.
Well, cool. Well, then, I think we're going to go down this advocacy path then. So why don't I stay with Rommel then? So I guess from your standpoint then, or just from your experience and what you're hearing, what are the kind of the hot topics in the student world these days?
Okay, so I have to say, when I matriculated into Neomed, this was when we were in the pandemic, full blown, a lot of fear, and a lot of disparities actually. So my first resolution was kind of in the middle of all this. Governor DeWine had started something called the Minority Health Strike Force, and it was kind of conceived because we found that in this public health emergencies, there was rising disparities among minoritized populations, especially in Ohio. And this kind of measured out to adverse clinical outcomes, access to care. And so when Governor DeWine had started this, we were looking at grassroots movements, and it was set to end at a particular term date. But my intention with the resolution that I'd written was to kind of propone the recommendations that they had started so that we wouldn't lose sight of this, when the next public health emergency came, or even in the future when we did see additional disparities. So that was my first landmark project that kind of got my feet wet. But I mean, since then, I've done a lot of things such as protection of medical students that advocate on social justice, kind of addressing pharmaceutical costs via the FDA, such as their citizens petition program. I think my most recent resolution within the AMA was actually addressing insurance coverage disparities among Latinx children. So I'm very much have a great passion for addressing these topics.
Cool. And then I guess, Olivia, from your standpoint, what are you seeing? What are you hearing as far as, important issues from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not really sure if this is something that will be discussed at national conference, but I know that a lot of my peers have been talking a lot about reproductive rights, especially in light of the leak of the Supreme Court's decision that, to my understanding, hasn't been officially announced yet. But that has been something that a lot of people in my class care a lot about. A lot of us volunteer at the local abortion clinic here in Cleveland. And so it's something that our class has definitely been engaged about in conversation with each other and in our group me, and as well as through email. And the advocacy pathway has been pretty involved in getting people to show out for protests and things like that, and just having conversation about next steps. So that's something that I do care about and think is relevant, not only for, the argument about whether or not it should be legal, but just the argument about what does that do for medical education. That's actually a big concern of mine. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I can almost guarantee that there's going to be some resolutions just with that timeline as far as when that is. So it's going to be talked about. There's going to be resolutions. Let me come back to AuBree next. So when talking about like policy, can you describe the process first? Maybe who's somebody who's never written a resolution, or somebody who has never been involved with policy. How can they make their voice heard to the AAFP when it comes to their opinion about something, or changing a policy, or modifying a policy?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and something that I guess I would have benefited from knowing before I went to national conference my first time. I was just kind of thrown in it. And so I kind of learned as I went. But basically, at national conference, if you are passionate about a subject, there are usually like roundtable discussions, which I'm so excited for when we're in person, because those were so hard to do virtually. We tried our best last year, but it was just really challenging. So there's roundtable discussions, and you can find other students that are also passionate about the same thing. So for example, Olivia, what you were talking about, you find that group of students that's passionate about it, and then you start to write a resolution. There's a timeline for that. And so, there's basically your statement, and then like your whereas clauses and your supporting information and your conclusion. And so you write this resolution for what you want changed and why, and like your supporting factors. And then you present that, you turn it in at the deadline, and you present that resolution. And then when the whole caucus of students meets, then one person from your group gets to, present your resolution. There is usually a group of people that reviews all the resolutions. There's a moderator that goes through the policy. That was me last year. So I read this whole book on policy because I, like I said, was kind of blind. So I learned a lot. So you have a moderator, and they walk you through bringing resolutions forward, voting on resolutions, calling the question, all of the policy-like verbiage. And you walk through the resolutions that get brought forward, and you discuss them as a group. And then the ones that are voted on and passed go up to the next step in policy making. And then they go to what I believe is the AAFP National Congress of Delegates meeting. And so your voice, and I want to make this part very clear, your voice as a student really does matter. I think a lot of times in medical school, we just do what we're told, and it's hard to realize the fact that your voice matters. But at national conference, it's really neat to meet up with people that have your same passions for whatever the cause may be, and put your heads together to bring those to light and to make sense of them in a way that it could actually facilitate change at a higher level. So I would really encourage, even if you know nothing about policy, there's some like great YouTube videos. Also, I know the AAFP puts out some like little videos you can learn from, and that really helped me. My predecessors that were before me that were in my position had these like little 30-second videos, and I think the AAFP shares them with all the students as well. And those are super helpful, very basic level, just to kind of like get the language down. It's much like medicine where it's kind of a foreign language if you've never heard it before. But then once you know a little bit, then you can really start to get into the groove and really make some really, truly, really impressive changes.
Great, yeah, thank you for that. Because I remember when I went back in the day, like I had no idea. It took me like 2 or 3 years to really figure out kind of what was going on, unless there were other people around me who had experience with that. So, Lizzy, let me come to you next and maybe talk a little bit about kind of, what is a reference committee? What does it do? Can people volunteer for that? What's the timeline of that? Can you go a little bit on that if people want to even get deeper and involved in the meeting?
Yeah, for sure. So the way the AAFP congresses work, like Aubrey said, we think of them as resolutions, and those are what the AAFP bases, like what we believe and what our principles are and what issues we support and where we stand on them. And so at resident, the residents and students can pass these submit these resolutions, right? And so for the national conference, it's actually a pretty quick process. So usually it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the conference. On Thursday, the resolutions get written. So it's nice if you come to national conference with some idea of the resolution you want to write. But even if you're not sure exactly, they give you time, and we'll have their student leaders and other experienced people around to sort of give advice on those resolutions. And then, so all the resolutions that get submitted on Thursday, then on Friday get sort of listened to. So there's a time for testimony on Friday at what we call these reference committees. So they're a smaller group where there'll be about 5 or 6 people at the front of the room who are on the committee. And as the resolution author, you get to go and present why you wrote this resolution and give a few sentences about your thought behind it, put a face to sort of the written language on there. And then there's a chance for anyone else who cares about the subject to present testimony on the resolution at that time, whether for or against your resolution. So actually then, if you're the author, after you present, you'll get to hear what other people might feel about your resolution, whether they're in favor of it, for which reasons, or whether they're against it. And then the reference committee members take into account all the different testimony that's presented, and they give a recommendation for whether the Congress as a whole should adopt this resolution or not. So then on Saturday, everyone comes back together in a larger group. The reference committee gives their opinion on whether your resolution should be adopted or not. And then the whole and then all the delegates, so like what Olivia will be doing, get to vote on whether they agree with that decision or not. So if you agree with the reference committee, then everything's good and it just sort of goes through. But if people disagree, then there's room to debate the topic again. So it's actually, I think, quite a fascinating process because it really reflects sort of how our democracy works, right? Everyone gets a chance to speak and give their side. And then at the end of it, we sort of vote on whether or not it should be passed.
Cool. Let me come back to Rommel. I know you've had some experience about this. Do you have other advice for people who are very new to this process, or who are maybe intimidated by the process, or not sure if they want to be a part of this process? What advice do you have, or what experience do you have?
The only thing I can say is sometimes you have to jump and then build the parachute on the way down. But what I will say is that it shouldn't really intimidate anyone, because honestly, policymaking is for everyone. If it truly represents what democracy is all about, then it has to be representative of even the smallest part of that community, of that population. And really just the best experience is to kind of go your way through it. I know we were talking about testimony, and I remember the first time I came up to that microphone with the speech on my phone, and I thought I was going to be good at it, and I'm sitting there, my hand is shaking, and I'm reading Rommel Morales, delegate from Neomed. But to be honest, you are the master of your work when you write these policies. You have done all the adequate research for it. You've developed this action plan for what the OAFP will do. And so really, it's just a matter of you explaining your expertise to that committee so that they can make a decision of how it's integrated to be implemented. That being said, I do want to say that as your delegate and alternate delegate, we are there to support you throughout this entire process, because at some point, we're all going to be lost, but we're going to all be lost together and get through it.
That's great advice. So, Olivia, does that make sense? I mean, because I know it's very intimidating when you first kind of hear it.
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm better understanding. I've read through so many of the documents about like what a delegate is and does, but similarly to what AuBree said, it is kind of like a foreign language. Especially, I've never written a resolution before. I've helped like read them, and I understand what it is, but I've never written one. So I think that the process of seeing this happen at national conference will be really helpful, and it's exactly what I want. What I hoped for in applying for this was to just learn by doing, and learn as much as possible. I do have a quick question, which is, I understand that caucuses happen to help garner what are the issues that are very important to constituents. Obviously, the things that I care about might not be the number one things that are on my peers' minds. And so I'm wondering, is there generally like a pretty good showing of students to the caucuses? If ever there aren't enough students who kind of like show up to that and speak out at them, are there ways to get more people to like just get more people's opinions and thoughts? And how does that kind of work?
AuBree or Lizzy can jump in there. Either one.
Yeah, from my experience, when it was in person, there was a great turnout of showing, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lizzy, but each state has a delegate and an alternate delegate, and then so that's 50 times 2, maybe 51 or 52 times 2, and so that's over 100, and then plus any additional students that want to hop in. I know that like if they have different leadership positions in the AAFP, but they aren't in, like a voting delegate, they're already in leadership, so they're a lot of the times very interested in like what's going on, and so they will come to those as well. So yeah, I would say that my first time there, I was impressed with how many people were there. And then also the amount of like students that spoke their mind and really kind of jumped in and expressed what they were passionate about. I will say, just like a little bit of an offshoot to this, to be very like truthful, the first time that I had to go up to the microphone, I had no idea what I was doing. This was before I had read anything, because I read things to educate myself because I was the moderator. Like I was the one that was holding this entire thing. But before that, as an actual delegate, it was a first time for me, as well as a first time for so many other people in that room. And so I cannot reiterate that enough, that you are not the only one. So do not by any means feel stupid or that you shouldn't be there, because you should. And just go up and, you've done the work. And so just kind of present it in the way that you're passionate about it.
Yeah, Lizzy, other feedback on that? As far as connecting with other people or finding people of similar...
Yeah, no, I think like AuBree said, there's usually a good turnout. You do the schedule can be a little bit confusing. So just again, as far as the actual days, national conference is Thursday to Saturday, and that Thursday afternoon, there's sort of that listed like resolution writing time. And I think that's the time when a lot of this discussion happens. And they sort of have it organized so that you can talk with other people and get feedback on different resolutions. I will say it's always, every year that I've been to national conference, it always feels like the struggle of wanting how do we get more people involved, right? How do I get all the students from Ohio to give me feedback? And I don't know that that ever quite happens. You try to reach out to people, but one thing that I've heard that I think rings true is that the ones who show up, right, are the ones who are going to make the decision, right? So if you care about a topic, you have to take a little bit of initiative and come. And so you guys are already sort of on that page. But any other students and residents listening out there, if you care about a topic, that's the best first step you can take, is just to show up at the table. And then, because otherwise no one is going to hear your opinion. And even if you're not sure what you're doing or don't know the right language to give it, at least you're showing up at the table, and then we'll help you figure it out.
So Olivia, does that make sense? Cool. So let's see. So let's talk a little bit about like volunteer positions at National Conference, like stuff you can sign up for to be a part of the process. I don't know who wants to go. And then we'll talk about elected positions after that. So is there stuff that you can volunteer for, Lizzy, for people who want to learn a little bit more about this process?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I'm not sure how they're going to do it this year, but usually the kind of positions that we're looking for to help out with the Congress are sort of people to help count votes, to be on the resolution committees. So those 5-6 people sitting at the front of the room to listen to testimony during the reference committees, for the reference committees. And then if you do have a little more experience like Rommel does, we do look for people like parliamentarians to help sort of give advice on the process and if we're doing things right. So usually I think it's pretty informal, but they'll have some sort of spreadsheet or sign up sheet where you can look out for that as delegates, especially look out for that in about the month before national conference that you can sign up for those positions.
Cool. All right. And then AuBree, maybe just touch a little bit about, elections for like, national delegate and chair and board, just to let people know that those opportunities are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's such called things as elected positions. And when that's the case, there is an application that you actually fill out, and you fill that all out, and then they print off usually like your profile sheet, and they stick it on one of the boards outside one of the policy rooms. And then when it comes time to vote on them, it's in front of the delegation, and you go up and give a speech. It's like some are 2 to 5 minute speeches. They're pretty strict about the time, just a side note. And so you give a speech, and then everybody votes at the end. That's how elected positions. So there's an elected position for National Conference Chair. There's an elected position for the Board of Directors. And there's a few others. They're all listed on the AAFP website. And so then you go up and kind of tell your story, like your little elevator speech of why you want to be that position. And then you find out usually that day if you're elected. And then at the last day of national conference or towards the end, there will be a kickoff meeting for all of the new elected leaders in the AAFP. A little bit of advice for that. My whole motto for national conference, especially when it was in person, was to say yes. To just dive in the water, drink the juice, just say yes. It seems like daunting and overwhelming, but if you talk to any of the prior leaders, they will tell you that it's not as daunting as it seems. The people at the AAFP are so extremely, extremely helpful. They have the best guidance. They hold your hand through the whole process. They let you develop as a leader. And so I would say if you have any inclination that you should do that leadership role, just go for it. Just apply, go up and say that speech. I had to do it. It was terrible. I mean, I was nervous, but it was the best experience because did I win? No, I didn't win, actually. It was like they had to revote 4 times, and it was very anxiety provoking. But out of that speech, not only one did I gain confidence public speaking, number 2, all of the AAFP like staff and other leaders in the organization were standing in the back of the room. They had then approached me and asked me to be the AAFP delegate to the AMA at that point because of my speech. So I didn't win the position that I was going for, yet it led me to something that opened even more doors, which then led me to becoming the national conference chair. So long story short, say yes. You have no idea where that opportunity is going to lead you. And so I would just jump right in the water and start to swim, because you'll swim and then you'll start to fly and soar with all of the help from the AAFP.
Cool. Yeah, Lizzy, any advice for people who are maybe on the fence or hesitant to run for a national position to put themselves out there?
I don't know if I can top what AuBree just said. I agree with her 100%. Just go for it. I think maybe the only other thing that helped me was just knowing that everyone else is just as nervous as you are. The vast majority of attendees, something like 90% of the attendees, are first-time attendees there. Everyone's just jumping in at the same time. So just go for it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. My one regret is I didn't run earlier. So I ran when I was a third year resident, my last national conference, and I ran to spite all my friends because they said you would never run for a position. So I ran, and like I left the stage like the fastest 2 minutes of my life, and I'm like, okay, let's go to the bar. And then I actually won. So that was just like the craziest thing ever happened. So it's fun. You're with friends. Everybody knows that people are learning the process. It's very respectful. The debate is very respectful, at least when I was there, but I think it's still now. I mean, people are on both sides of pretty much every issue, but the process is outlined where both sides get to state their point of view. And, if you're concerned or you feel intimidated, you're going to find people around who have similar or the same points of view that you do, which is helpful for resolutions and also may help for election as well. So, let's see. Anything else? AuBree, Lizzy, anything we're forgetting at this point? I know we've overwhelmed everybody with all this new national conference language.
I have one more thing to add, kind of to like give you a little bit of a excitement for it and like what it can bring. So just to give you one example of the connections that can be made at national conference, there are so many. Well, I'll give you two examples. Sorry, I'm really passionate about this. So I think connections are everything. In medicine, they just lead to so many new opportunities. And I think that we underestimate the power of reaching out to someone and meeting someone and really like making that connection, whether that's like 1 minute or it lasts an hour. My roommate in medical school, she was 1 year ahead of me. She went to national conference with me. She ended up meeting the program director of the program she's at now, that's the sole reason she's at that program. And she met her at national conference at one of those booths. And that is why she is at that program, and she's absolutely loving it. And then the second one, when I was at national conference, I ended up sitting by Dr. Cullen. He was a past president of the AAFP. I didn't know who he was at the time when I sat next to him. And then, someone told me, I got the hint. And so then I struck up a conversation. We talked, we hit it off. Then all of a sudden, when I was going into fourth year and trying to make my rotations, he offered to host me in rural Alaska. I was going to live in his basement and do a rural family medicine rotation with him. I had my flights, I had everything, then COVID. So I never got to go. I still plan on going at some point. But that was all from one conversation at national conference that led to a possible fourth year rotation in one of the coolest parts of the world. And so I just can't stress enough. Just, reach your hand out. If we're shaking hands, I shake hands, but reach your elbow out, meet people, talk to people. You never know what one conversation is going to lead to. And people are super interesting. So just try and talk to as many as you can. Even if you're an introvert, I know it can be harder, but do your best. Maybe give them your card or something if that makes you feel more comfortable. But I just can't stress enough. I'm so excited that it's in person this year. And I really hope all of you that are watching or tuning in or watching later really just get the little bug that I got and really look forward to National Conference.
Cool. And Lizzy, you have it? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I know we've been talking a lot about the congresses, so I just wanted to also bring it back a little bit to the rest of the conference too. Like AuBree sort of alluded to, there's the expo hall, and there are so many residency programs across the country, and it's really fun to meet people in person because you get a different feel for the program from much better than just trying to read through their websites. And then also just again to think through, like, there's all these workshops you can attend. Even you can't attend everything. That's always the hard part of going to national conferences. You can't go to everything you want, but they really do have such great sessions. And so actually, even after first year, between first to second year of med school is actually a really great time to go also, because if you have that summer break, and even if you're not sure you want to do family medicine, it's just a great place to get excited about why you went to medical school in the first place and sort of explore the options. And then there's really never a bad time to go to national conference, right? If you're going into fourth year for interviewing and residencies, it's great practice for that. But in between, there's just so much other things that you can learn from it also. I also had just a fun other tip would be, I would expect that you should not plan to have to pay for any dinners while you're at national conference. If you do it well, maybe not any meals actually, because there's just a lot of talks. The residency programs like to host dinners, and then like Ohio, we're hosting our reception on Thursday nights. So definitely plan on those things too.
Well, cool. Yeah, it sounds like we're doing some closing thoughts here. Olivia, you have any final questions or closing thoughts as far as what you've heard in our conversation tonight?
I guess the only thing is to add to what everyone else has said about how amazing national conference is. I know I haven't ever been, but every resident who I've spoken to, I've been trying to meet with a lot of rural residents who are currently going through residency, because I'm really interested in doing a rural residency program. And every single one of them told me that when they were on the fence, they went to national conference, they drank the juice, and they totally fell in love with family medicine. And they knew for sure after national conference that was for them. So I think it is a really powerful experience, and I'm just so excited for it. And I would just encourage anyone who's listening to this who's like, I don't know about family medicine, it seems like a lot or whatever. If you even think a little bit that you might be interested, go, because I think that it's going to be a really incredible experience, and I'm very excited.
Cool. All right, Rommel, any questions, any closing thoughts on our conversation tonight?
No, I just want to echo what Olivia said, because, as we traverse our careers, everything is about connections. If you're watching this, I would have to hope that you're feeling a connection to both this and family medicine, and are excited about meeting all of us here at the upcoming national conference. And that can only really grow as you move on in your career. And, if you seize those opportunities, and let this be one additional opportunity in your belt.
Cool. Well, yes. I guess my closing thoughts are, people who go to national conference, or people who get the bug of advocacy, we're here at OAFP when you come back, and we would love for you to contribute to our state organization in whatever capacity you feel comfortable. My quick national conference story is that you meet friends for life. There are people who I met in leadership way back in the 90s. Yes, before there was any embarrassing social media. So there's no photos out there. But some of them are or have been president of their chapter when I was president of my chapter. So we've had a great long relationship, and kept in touch with their career, with their family. That's what National Conference does. And for people who go and keep going. And I think Lizzy said before the talk, before the hour, people like me go back and present, or if you're part of a residency program, you go back and you kind of relive National Conference. So I wish everybody the best. I can't go this year, but I know I'm going to be hearing a lot about it. And that ends our program tonight. So I want to thank all of our panelists. I'm very jealous that all of you are going in person this year. So, we thank everybody who watched us live and also on demand. And to get more information about OAFP, ohioafp.org. And of course, you can go to afp.org for information about National Conference. So that ends Bite-Sized Learning. Dr. Mike Sevilla, and good night, everybody. Wave, everybody. Bye.